Hello travelers, I'm Chris, welcome to Lorespire. In this video, we're going to be discussing honey, giant bees, and giant beehives. I'll show you all the best ways to gather honey on foot, how to gather it on a dire bear, and how to capture your own queen bee either from a hive or found out in the wilds. Then we'll move on to building your own beehive, collecting honey, and pretty much everything that you need to know about the entire process. I will include the items you need and supplies that you need, as well as some mods along the way that can simplify the process because it is very involved and can be difficult. This video is broken down into chapters, so if you need something specific and you don't need all of the info, feel free to skip ahead to the chapter that is right for you. The easiest way to find beehives is to come to the redwood forest shown in the center of the map here. In Ark Survival Evolved, you could find giant beehives in various places outside of the redwood forest, usually on the sides of cliffs. However, in Ark Survival Ascended, I have only found giant queen bees outside of the redwoods. I have found no hives outside of the redwoods, so just be aware of that. When searching for a giant beehive in the redwoods, be sure to bring a flyer along. This will make things much quicker and easier. You're going to want to fly at a height of maybe about 4 to 6 wall tiles. That's where you'll find most beehives. And remember, there are thylacoleos. As you can see here, they can be a real pain, so be on the lookout for them. Now, sometimes you might find 2 beehives on the same tree, as you see here, or there might even be 3 or 4 or 5 on the same tree. If you're having trouble finding giant beehives, there is a mod that can help. It is called Dino Finder. That is DER Dino Finder mod. What it's going to do is add this Open Finder button to your map, and you can use that to open up this Find Dinos panel and type in bee, then select Giant Queen Bee, and then hit this button here, and it will actually show all of the giant queen bees on the map. Now, all of them inside of the redwood forest are going to be actual beehives. If you see one outside of the redwood forest, that will almost certainly be a wild queen bee on her own without a hive. Once you have these waypoints available and you can see where the queen bees are, you can double click one to add it to your field of view. And then you just fly towards it the same way you would a waypoint marker or death marker or anything else. Okay, after you find your giant beehives, you'll need to build some platforms so that you can reach them. Just build something that's practical. I suggest using some pillars with some ceiling pieces and some ramps like you see here. Or you can go with a foundation with some wall pieces and some ramp pieces like what we have right here. Doesn't really matter. Whatever gets you there is all that you need. And now that you have your platforms in place, I'm going to show you the 3 best methods of gathering wild honey on foot. The first method here is going to be to simply wear a ghillie suit. With the ghillie suit, you can just run up to a beehive, press E to grab the honey, and immediately turn and run. If bees are chasing you, just continue to run until you've gotten far enough away that the bees despawn. Now, the next way that I'm going to show you is with bug repellent. Okay, and this works pretty much the exact same way. If you have bug repellent instead of ghillie, you just spray on the bug repellent. You run up to the hive, you push E, then immediately turn and run. And you run until the bees despawn if they're chasing you. Now, the last way that I'm going to show you is actually a little simpler and certainly less resource intensive, although it does require a higher level. And this is going to be to use a crossbow and grappling hook. Okay, you can simply grapple onto the ground or a rock or a tree or wherever. Just make sure that it's a fair distance from the beehive, preferably out of the chase range of the bees. So you're going to grapple to that area. Then you hold right click in order to let out your grappling line while you run up to the beehive. Press E to grab the honey just like normal, and then immediately use your left click in order to grapple away from the beehive. Whichever method you choose to gather the wild honey, you should immediately place it from your inventory into your mount's inventory. Because the spoil timer of honey is only 20 minutes in your inventory, but it should be an hour and 20 minutes in your mount's inventory. If you have a preservation bin or a fridge nearby, then that's even better. I feel like now's a good time to mention possibly getting a stacking mod. We use TG stacking mod on our server. You can choose whichever stacking mod works best for you. There are plenty of them out there. But basically, it's just going to allow you to stack items into bigger stacks than the vanilla game will allow. And in the case of honey, this will allow you to stack more than one, since that's all you can do in vanilla. The next method that I'm going to show you to harvest honey is arguably the best method, even better than building your own beehive, or at least faster. And that is, of course, harvesting it with a dire bear. For this, you'll need to tame your own dire bear, of course, throw a saddle on it, and then walk up the ramp next to the giant beehive. Once you get there, you'll notice that it says attack for honey. Now, don't use your left click attack, use your right click. Your right click is a swipe, and it'll collect the honey without damaging the hive and without angering the bees. Gathering honey on bareback also has the added advantage of not disturbing the bees, so they never attack you, you don't pull any aggro, and you gather 3 times as much honey, getting 15 per beehive instead of the 5 that you get if you harvest it by hand. The beehives can still be harvested every 15 minutes if you harvest them with a dire bear. So if you have multiple beehives with platforms built up to them, you can gain honey very, very rapidly using this method. Next up, I'm going to show you how to tame a giant queen bee. Alright, and there are 2 methods for this. One is finding a queen bee loose out in the wild without a hive, and the other is, of course, destroying a hive. We'll go over finding one loose first, and then we'll go over the hive after that. Now, I did a good bit of searching for queen bees outside of the redwood forest that you could find loose in the wilds to tame, and I've marked on the map here the only locations where you either can or might find them that I'm aware of. The 2 locations shown in pink are places where I have personally found and tamed a giant queen bee. I know for sure that they can be there. The 2 areas marked in green are places that I've been told they can be found, but I haven't actually seen it yet myself. Now, I did actually use the Dino Finder mod that we mentioned earlier to try to find other queen bee locations outside of the redwood forest, and invariably, whenever I found a giant queen bee that was not at one of these 4 spots, I could not tame it. It was always locked inside of the terrain and unreachable. I could get close enough for the drones to attack me, but I could never get close enough to actually interact with the queen bee. Now that you've found the giant queen bee, you'll want to put on a ghillie suit and spray on some bug repellent. Make sure that you have either some simple kibble or rare flowers. Both are pretty easy to come by and highly effective in taming her. Put one of the 2 foods into your 10 spot on the hotbar, and then sneak up behind the queen bee and press E to feed her. Now, the queen bees can sometimes make some quick turns, and they're pretty fast, so I suggest just pumping E as fast as you can once you start getting close, so that you don't miss your opportunity. Now, depending on your server settings and the queen bee's level and what you're feeding her, of course, you may or may not need to feed her more than once. If you do need to feed her more than once to tame her, simply back off for a minute or 2 and then come back up behind her and feed her again. Repeat that process until she is tamed. Once you have the queen bee tamed, I suggest turning her into a beehive right away. This will make her much easier to handle and to transport. Next, we're going to cover how to tame a giant queen bee by destroying a beehive. And the first thing that I want to go over here with this method is blank beehives. Notice whenever I shoot this beehive, nothing happens, no bees come out to attack. There is, of course, some damage that's done. But if no bees come out to attack whenever you attack a beehive and you're close to it, then that means it's going to be blank or empty, not have a queen in it. I pretty much just chalk this up to the beehive being bugged. If, however, you attack one and bees or drones do come out, like right there, then that one's definitely going to have a queen in it. So that's the one that you'll want to destroy to get a queen bee. So once you've located a hive that you know is not bugged or blank, then there are several methods of destroying that hive. The first, quickest, easiest, but also the most expensive is by using C4. You simply grapple up to the beehive, you lay your C4 charges, 2 is usually plenty, and then you grapple back down, get away, and explode the C4 charges, and the hive is destroyed. The next way that I'm going to show you is cost effective, but it does take a while. However, it's pretty simple, and that is by simply using a crossbow. Even with a primitive crossbow, you're going to hit in the mid 30s on a beehive, which means that if you bring 200 or so arrows, you can destroy it, probably only needing about 170 or so. And it will definitely take a while. You'll probably want to bring 2 different crossbows if you're using primitives, just because of durability. But basically all you do is get it in your sights, start firing, and keep firing until the hive is destroyed. Now, if you have better weapons, or if you don't want to wait as long, use a shotgun, use a rifle, use a pistol, whatever it is that you want. They are, of course, going to be much more expensive ways to destroy the hive, but they'll be quicker. Now, the final method that I'm going to show you for destroying a beehive to get at the queen bee is through the use of a dire bear. Okay, it's pretty much the same way as gathering honey, only instead of right-clicking, you're going to left-click to attack. You should deal damage just like that. Don't worry if the bees attack you, they're not too much of a danger, because dire bears do offer protection from bees, which prevents you from being dismounted. So you don't really have to worry about the bees too much while you are mounted. After a few attacks, you should destroy the beehive. However, sometimes there will be multiple beehives stacked on top of each other, which seems to be the case here. Whenever that happens, simply back up away from the beehive and inch your way towards it while attacking until you start doing damage to the beehive. The goal here is to destroy the beehive without killing the queen that is trapped inside of it. Sometimes you'll have to destroy multiple beehives to release the queen, and sometimes that will result in multiple queens being released. Very quickly, we're going to put on some bug repellent. And notice that we have our taming food in our 10 spot still. So we're just going to quickly catch up to the queen, come up behind her while pumping E, and we should be able to capture her. And there it is, we have tamed our giant queen bee. Once again, I do suggest turning the queen into a beehive immediately for ease of handling. Now, the last thing that we need before we construct the beehives are rare flowers, so let me show you where to gather those. The easiest way to gather rare flowers in Ark Survival Ascended the island is to find these giant beaver dams. Okay, you simply come up to them, access their inventory, and they'll pretty much always have rare flowers inside. Now, sometimes it's not very many, sometimes it's a lot. You can also get cementing paste, mushrooms, and lumber from them. Also, the nearby beavers will almost always attack you whenever you access the inventory of a dam. This one actually did attack me. It was just before this footage started. You can see its body there. So just be aware of that. Be ready for a fight. Much easier to fight them out of water than in water, by the way. So I do suggest getting to land and fighting them up on the shore. Now, looking at the map here, if we look at these yellow waypoints, 3, 5, and 6, those are the 3 spots where I usually find beaver dams. However, if you look on the Survival Evolved wiki, they will also show them appearing here in this waterway, as well as right down here. So you may find them there as well, but it's pretty common to find them at the points that I've marked here. Now, if you want to gather rare flowers more quickly than that, you should head to the swamp and use a Therizinosaur like this. You can just run along the water's edge in the swamp using the right click to harvest and harvest all the bushes that are around here. And you will pick up quite a few rare flowers. The number you pick up will, of course, depend on your server's harvest settings. But even on normal settings, you'll get quite a bit more doing this than you get from beaver dams. Now, we should have everything that we need to construct our beehive and have it produce honey. Simply access your inventory, press E on the beehive, and you can place it on a foundation, on the ground, on structures, pretty much wherever you want that it'll fit. So find a spot to place it down. There are a few things that you need to know at this point. If you access the beehive's inventory, you will take damage. Notice our life go down there. If you're wearing a ghillie suit, then that damage will be minimal. If, however, you are wearing other armor, regular armor, and you access the inventory, notice that the damage is greater, and you also get the bees debuff, which does damage over time. So it's quite a bit of a big difference. If you somehow have access to a hazmat suit, you can wear that to negate all the damage from the bees. Also, the beehive needs rare flowers in order to make honey, and it will still produce honey without rare flowers, but it will also take damage over time, eventually destroying itself. So try to make sure that you've always got rare flowers in the beehive. The beehive should consume the rare flowers at a rate of 1 flower per 45 minutes, and in turn, it will give you 1 honey per 45 minutes. Now, if you want to move the beehive for whatever reason, or if you're just tired of having it there, you can actually deconstruct the beehive. Just come over here, go to demolish and demolish it. And whenever you demolish it, it will turn back into a giant queen bee, which is pretty cool. Then you simply access the queen bee and turn her into a beehive, and you've got the beehive stored until you need it. So this whole process of collecting honey and creating a beehive and all of that was extremely involved. It's not an easy task, it really isn't. There is a mod that you can download to simplify and streamline the process. It is called Quality of Life Plus, or QOL Plus, and it will allow you to build a domesticated beehive. You can see right there, it only costs 200 fiber, 100 thatch, 50 honey, and 250 rare flowers. So very, very, very easy. You don't have to capture a queen bee. You don't have to go through any of the other stuff. It also will produce honey more quickly than the standard beehive, nor does it take damage whenever it runs out of rare flowers. And perhaps best of all, whenever you access the inventory, you do not take any damage. So that's something to consider if you're just feeling overwhelmed by all of this. FYI though, QOL Plus does change quite a few other things, not just beehives. So check it out, read the mod notes, and decide if it's right for you. Anyways, you should now know everything that you need to know about gathering honey, giant bees, and giant beehives. I hope that this really helped you out. If it did, be sure to leave us a comment, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more Ark Survival Ascended content. This has been Chris with Lorespire. Be well, my friends.